This interview is brought to you by Transformational Mortgage Solutions. You can check out the full episode at LykkenOnLending.com.
I just want to welcome Chris George, founder and president and CEO of CMG Financial, truly one of the top companies leading the industry for 3 decades, cultivating an organization capable of sustaining and thriving through cyclical market functions. And we're just so glad to have you, Chris, joining us today. You're also you have been the chairman of CMBA, and now you're on the chairman of the MBA. So good to have you with us, Chris, and I appreciate you taking time out of your extremely busy schedule.
I am quite certain one of, if not all of my sons got a hold of your sound man and provided the intro of Wham today. So they've got some fascination.
That is so funny. And I got to tell you, before we got live, listeners, we had the whole George family on here, and this is going to be a runaway podcast. Just warn you right now, this is going to be a runaway interview because they are all lots of personality.
Well, let me tell you who you have here so you can experience the runaway personality train. So you have my oldest son, AJ, is 31. He is our chief administrative officer responsible for capital markets in our organization, as well as he has recently started up a new division of our organization, which is a broker-dealer side of our business, taking a little step further in the ecosystem, if you will. Next is Philip George, who's 30. Philip is our marketing manager, is responsible for a variety of different areas, and notably doing a lot of training on utilizing social media, utilizing CRM. I was interested to hear the Roostify comment about the digital mortgage. He has a lot of experience in that area. Third is Harrison George, who is out in the great state of Idaho. He's in Boise, and is one of the things that we like the boys to do is become licensed as loan officers and want them to know what it means to be a loan officer. That, yes, there are multiple facets of our industry, but at the end of the day, we're serving a customer and helping them either purchase or acquire real estate and or refinance that property and get a better interest rate. And I want my kids to know what the core aspect of our industry is. So Harrison is in Boise. He purchased a home out there, and he works for our office in Meridian, Idaho. And then my youngest son, Adam, is also a loan officer. He's finishing up school down in San Diego. He is out of our office down there, equally learning how to be a loan officer and exploring different parts of the company, both being a loan officer, the B2C side, but also maybe looking at wholesale or correspondent on that B2B side.
Well, I want to say, first of all, I celebrate your success professionally, Chris. But, at the end of the day, after we're all said and done, it's going to be our kid really talking and carrying on our legacy. And I just applaud you, Chris, for your family values, your core values personally, and how you carry them into your family. I just celebrate that way more even than your very successful career that you've had over these many decades. It's always a joy. So let's start off in the order that Chris introduced you. Let's start out. And what I'd like to have each of you do is, what was it like growing up in a mortgage family? Was it like you felt like you were walking the plank and you had to get into this, make the dive into it?
This is AJ George. I guess we'll just kind of continue on with the birth order rotation.
Birth order, yeah.
So I guess, one of the things that I always say, David, is that with the last name George, it is incumbent upon me to be curious. So, with that, I was always...
That's good. I love it.
Thank you. It's a little something I came with myself.
Very creative.
So, thank you. So with that, my dad started, like all several other successful companies here in the Bay Area, he started this company out of our garage in 1993. And for me, I was always curious, what my dad did in there, right? He was always working, and he still to this day is an incredibly hard worker, which is something that myself and my brothers have learned from him and take away. But I always wondered, what kept my father away from his family? Obviously, that we know he loves us very much, and what could be this other thing that's keeping him away from us? Something else that he something that he loves more than anything. And so, like I said, I was curious and said, what is it that he does? Because if he likes it, maybe I'll like it.
Yeah.
And, once he put us through some rigmarole, my dad told us that we had to have, and this is something that all of my brothers and I had to do, that we had to have 2 jobs before we came into before we worked for him.
I remember him telling me that, yes.
If we got hired by him.
Hired.
And he emphasized if very heavily. We had to do a food service industry, so we had to work at a restaurant. Basically, he always said, before we could learn how to lead, we had to learn how to serve, which meant being able to pay attention to detail of taking people's orders. One of the things that I learned, and I'm sure some of my brothers will talk a little bit about this, one of the things that I learned is that when people don't like a particular type of food, they don't like it a little bit. They don't like it a lot or at all. So, seeing people's reactions to when you brought them something incorrect, you learn a lot from that. Secondarily, the other thing that he had us do, he said, okay, after you do your 1 year in food service industry, you have to do a year in some sort of manual labor profession. At that time, this is right when my father bought our ranch in 2004, which at that time was unlivable. And so he hired all of us as brothers and several of my friends to work up there for several summers, and along with the rest of several other construction crews where, on Friday nights when we wanted to go out with our friends, it was virtually impossible because our back hurt and, we were outside at literally every second of the day. And, some of the lessons and takeaways that I took away from that was, you're lucky to work inside under a roof because not everybody gets to do that. And working outside is one of the hardest jobs I've ever experienced. And lastly, hard work works. Another something that I came up with and always say, sometimes it's just hard work that works and you have to go along with it.
I grew up like the same way. My dad was an entrepreneur, had his own business, and he taught me a work ethic by throwing bales of hay because we had cattle and I had to go work out on the farm. And it was, I'll tell you, I never appreciated inside job and air conditioning so much after working and pitching hay in over what I thought was hot temperatures in Minnesota. So I really calibrate of what's hot.
Well, absolutely.
Thank you,
I
AJ.
think, and lastly, I'll just say, because I know you answered this, is what was it like growing up in a mortgage family? Well, at CMG, we never miss escrow dates because something that I also say is early's on time is late, and late's never acceptable. And so when we had to be home for dinner, he always equated it to a close of escrow date. So we never missed closing of escrow dates, and we were always on time for dinner. David, back to you.
We could always that's excellent. I wonder if we could ask that of your wife when you were courting her. Did you have her home on time or ever messed up a close on escrow on that one? That's good. I like that. Very good. Well, let's get on to Phil. Get on and tell us about your growing up in a mortgage family, and I love the comments from your older brother. So follow that up. It's going to get difficult, I think, for each one of you to come on here. Are you curious? Are curious George as well? That's funny.
I think, Dave, first off, thank you again for having us all on the show. We're really honored to be invited, so thanks again. I think all of my brothers and I are all very, very curious. I think AJ hit the nail on the head with that one, but when it comes to what kind of drew us into the industry, at least for me, my dad likes to say that he kind of fell into this industry. He didn't plan up growing up through school saying, I'm going to join the mortgage industry. That's what I want to do. Well, I think, and I don't want to speak on behalf of all my brothers, but I kind of always knew that I wanted to follow my dad's footsteps. But I also wanted to put my own spin on it. Because when I joined, I mean, our industry is a little, personally, I think, outdated. So from my perspective and what I want to do with my channel and my team at work within the marketing department is I always wanted to take the resources that are available right now and kind of apply them and see how we can change things. So I've always been driven to technology, from video to photo to online applications. And I've always wanted to take all that kind of stuff and bring it into our industry because I think there is a huge value add there for bringing down the cost per consumer. Because
that gets me excited. We're going to have to do a separate podcast for you just to hear about what your thoughts are on that. Phil, because
I would love
I share that with you, because there's so much opportunity, and there's just such a stodginess of how we've gone about it. So, wow. Well, okay, so we got 2 new podcasts more going on. Good. Did you? So
Sure.
You then purposely, intentionally followed your dad into it, and then have the innovative. Your whole family's innovative, and which is really encouraging. But you really specialized in that. Sounds like really that's your intent focus.
Yeah, that's really what I would like to kind of really focus in on in my career, at least, is finding different ways to lower the cost for the consumer. As you know, as the years have gone on, the cost for the consumer has gone up as well. And I think if we can lower that bottom line, we'll be able to make home ownership more affordable for the consumer, which then will help others out.
Lower home ownership costs, getting into the barrier entry and the speed and ease. It's got to happen. Thank you, Phil. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, okay, so Harrison, let's get your kind of take on it. Are we going to have a third podcast out of this? Tell us about yourself, and what was it like growing up in a mortgage family, and some of the things you're focusing in on.
So I just ultimately...
By the way, I will note, you were the first one to dial in. You are the most on time of all the Curious Georges out there. So
like I came up with, early is on time and on time is late, and late is never acceptable. That's something that I actually developed on my own, throughout the years. And I also kind of wanted to say that my brothers like to call me the strongest George, just because, growing up on the ranch, I pretty much just had to carry the weight of my 3 other brothers, doing all the hard work on the ranch. But ultimately, AJ got to experience the start of CMG in our garage, where my little brother and we got to experience the middle of CMG throughout the downturn of 2008. So I think one thing about growing up in the industry and growing up along the side of my dad is, he would come home late on those nights just by working and trying to solve problems within the company. And I always remembered him coming home with eagerness to wanting to do stuff with us, whether it was go down into the barn and tinker, or he would always come home with such a lighthearted experience that it almost kind of just rubbed off on my brother and I. And it was very impactful, at least for me, to see how his heart was just so open even during the hardest of times.
Yeah. That is a signature of your dad. I've watched him write some big checks at the events, like at Open Doors and what the industry does on a philanthropic basis. And I tell you, that is such a signature of your dad, and it's one that it challenges me and makes me just want to stand up and get emotional right there. So that's one that I'm so grateful for, that you have that example. That's excellent. Excellent. Yeah. Appreciate that, Harrison.
No problem.
And your focus again, you're located where again? Are you in?
I'm in Idaho right now, Boise, Idaho.
You're in
and I'm a residential lender. Yeah, I help customize home loan solutions for people looking to buy houses or anything else that they're looking to trying to do.
I appreciate that. Well, let's get over to Adam. Adam, good to have you on the podcast. Yo, sorry. Are you the one that came? Are you the one that came up with the song?
No. Unlike
that
my
was
brothers,
me.
I don't like to take credit for things.
That was you.
Yeah, so that was. I'll say it's a group effort. Good.
Okay, good. I love it.
Yeah. First off, David, thank you for having us on. I really appreciate it. This is really fun getting to talk to you guys. But to answer your question, thank you. To answer your questions, growing up in a mortgage family, what was that like? For me, it seems normal. Growing up and trying to fill out a 1003 for some lunch money is pretty much a standard weekday when we were in elementary school. But no, it was really good. Harry did a good job talking about it. My dad always seemed eager to even go back to work, I thought, as well. So, that kind of just drew, just a curious interest, and I was just wondering about it. But my path, I think, was a bit different. I kind of did the 2 manual labor jobs similar to my other brothers. And then when I moved down to San Diego a couple years ago, I wanted to meet people, and so I'm an avid surfer, so I started working in a surf shop, kind of like sales-oriented with just retail stuff, and I ended up meeting a connection through a customer, and I started working for a startup skateboard company. And so I kind of always did sales, and it kind of progressed. This is fun. I like this idea of working with people and businesses. And then
I reached out to my dad and just asked him about like real estate. And he's, oh yeah, real estate's great. And then I met with a real estate agent down here, and it was just didn't really work the way I thought it was going to work. And then I asked my dad about lending, and he set me up with someone that was just really good in one of our other offices, and that kind of sold me on it. But yeah, for me, he never really like pressured me into doing it. I kind of just fell into it, and it's just it's really, really fun now. I just enjoy what I'm doing, learning a lot. But that's what that was.
One of the things that I think when you watch someone, whether it be a dad or an influential figure in your life, really passionate about something, it draws you to them, and it draws you to that which they're passionate about. So
yeah,
I applaud you. I really applaud you, Chris, for demonstrating that passion. I share that with you. And by the way, you're down in my favorite part of the country. I had 2 mortgage companies that I was president and CEO of down there, one in Rancho Bernardo and then one in Poway. So I love that area.
Yeah, I know you're. Yeah,
a great country, and it is a beautiful place. And the most boring job is a weatherman in San Diego. It's just clear and sunny, clear and sunny.
Yeah, it's pretty.
So
funny.
anyway, but let's talk. Let's shift over to Dad, Chris. It's so Gene, one of the things that I'm really impressed with is you have the same philosophy as my dad. Now, you and I'm actually, I think, a little older than you are, but it's that work ethic, and you instilled that so early on. And when we first met, I think it was at the IMB in Palm Springs, you and I sat down, and I did not want to leave your suite because it was infectious to be in your presence and to hear the stories. And you had so many great stories to share about that. And you brought up how you made your kids work as a waiter at one point in time and work hard labor. And that so impressed me. Let's talk about some of the other things. And again, the focus is father. We can talk about all that you've accomplished, all that you've done in the business. We're going to come back to some of that in future podcasts. But I want to talk about, as a dad in the mortgage industry, talk about some of the struggles that you have. How did you balance it? Because that's one of the things I've struggled most with. And I think most of those that are running successful businesses, it's that balance of their life. And I can't remember which one of your sons, or maybe one of them, several of them said that we watched Dad having to go back to work and working hard at it, but you did it in such a way to draw them all into it. So kudos, but talk about the balance, the work-life balance.
Well, let me just first say, as I'm listening to the boys talk, I'm thinking to myself, where are my boys? Because these 4 kids, I have no idea.
They're imposters. I hear Chris George all through them. I think each one of them.
Well, I can answer your question in a couple of quick stories. The first one is that one of the things that my wife Teresa wanted out of our family was she said you could do whatever you want during the week. You can stay out as late as you want to stay out. You can work as long as you want to work. But come Friday night and come Sunday night, and generally for the weekends, I would be home for the kids' sporting events. But Friday night, Sunday night, I'm home. You know, we tend to have our big dinner on Sunday night at the ranch now, and sometimes it's only 3 or 4 of the kids because a lot of them are out and about. And sometimes it's a big group, like yesterday at Father's Day, and other times we've had others over. So to me, it seemed that there was a way that I could weave work and home together. There wasn't really a blurred line. There was no line. I felt like we were running a family business. I wanted the kids to be part of that if they wanted to. It wasn't, right. A couple of them commented about the fact that it wasn't a requirement. I wanted them to do something that they loved, and, the old story that if you do something you love, you never work a day in your life. And right. And I felt that was important with them. And along the way, as each of them sort of discovered on their own what was going on at the company, it made me feel pretty good that they were picking up sort of the torch. And the torch is, for us, is culture. So it was pretty important that we wanted to maintain a particular kind of culture in our organization. We were not interested in becoming something that we either aren't or necessarily don't want to be. And now, as the company continues past its 25th year, this will be the 28th year now. We're approaching this period of time where the kids are taking over the responsibility of leadership. The kids are responsible for setting the culture. You talk about giving, and I appreciate the kind comments from you, but those are the things that you instill in your children pretty early on. And we're fortunate. Yeah. These kids are, all kidding aside, these 4 boys are miraculous. They They have their moments, I will tell you. When they get together, I am duly surprised they are this well behaved today. But I think there was a certain beating coming had they been out of line today. But in some other time, David, in a non-recorded way, if you spend 15 to 20 minutes with the four George boys, believe me, it's an experience you do not want to miss.
It's special, yeah. I've got to sit there with you, and I can't remember which ones were with you that time when I met you in the suite there at the IMB, but you can just tell the bond, and you talk in the humor. I think when you could tell and how the joking, there's such an affection and respect for you, Dad, Chris George, and I think it's so wonderful to see how you instill the family values as it's being continued in each one of them. You also went through some difficult times when we shared those times, and I think sometimes everyone wants to tell the happy places, but you went through some really difficult times as a family. I remember you calling. If you could just share that briefly, and then how all of you rallied together in that moment, because difficulty will either divide you or it'll bring you together. Talk about that if you could.
You know, the interesting thing is that I think each time you experience some form of difficulty, it's sort of preparing you for the next time of difficulty. You know, you're sort of being tested, if you will, that you say, my gosh, there's just no way I'm going to get past this particular thing, and then you get past it, and you find that all it's doing is preparing you for something even more difficult. And that's true with two real big episodes in our life. The first one is when Adam was born in September of 1994. He was born with a pretty rare liver disorder. It was required for him to have a liver transplant. And by May 1st of 95, we ended up doing a transplant. My wife was able to donate about a third of her liver. They took Adam's liver out and put hers in. And it was a big deal, right? The other three boys are spread all over the place, right? They're at each one of my family's homes, and I'm trying to figure out a way to run a company through a pretty bumpy time in 94 and 95. And further, we're a new company. And further, I'm also trying to do the right thing. So my schedule was that I would run the company during the day, do my thing during the day, and then I would go sleep at night at the hospital. And my wife, Teresa, and I would sort of alternate back and forth. She would be there during the day, and I would be there at night. And I thought to myself, boy, how can this get any worse? How can this really become any more difficult than this? Well, then 2008 rolled into my world, which so many people can appreciate, that when you're turning for anything, grasping for any straw or root, trying not to fall off into the cavern, you know, it becomes very difficult. And to that end, what we did as a family is we cut way back. I mean, we just cut way back. On the weekend after Thanksgiving of 2008, November of 2008, I was here in the office preparing to file bankruptcy because I didn't think there was a way we were going to make it for a few more months. And as you recall, David, on the 27th day of November of 2008, the United States government started buying mortgage-backed securities, and air came back into the room. And in a month, we thought we would lose $200,000 or $300,000 in December of 2008. We actually made $13,000. We worked every single day of the month, including Christmas and New Year's, Christmas Eve. But the fact is, we kind of rallied together. I think what the boys saw through all of this, and I love listening to them lay claim to some of the standard statements of mine and, frankly, my father's, but that's okay because I like, you know, there's an old saying that, and I'm surprised none of them have used this one yet. There's an old saying that said, good artists copy and great artists steal. So you're listening to four great artists on the phone. And what I like to know, and it's great listening to what they have to say about these troubled times because they were aware. They paid attention, that it wasn't lost on them, that something was going on, and that me and their mother, and frankly them as well, were in the midst of trying to figure out a way to dig ourselves out of the hole. That, I think there's a lot of different ways to judge a person's character, and I can tell you this, it is not when things are going well. The time to judge someone is when things are going very badly, and to see, are they running from the burning building, or are they running toward it? Because there's a very special group of people that run into the building that's burning. So I'm glad to hear that they picked up on a lot of those lessons.
As we wrap this up, I would like to have each one of you going again in birth order. So we're going to go AJ, Phil, Harrison, and Adam. talk about the lesson that you watching your dad. But it so resonates with me going through the difficult times in life. That it's like a tea bag. I heard it say you don't really know the flavors or what's involved in the tea bag until you drop in hot water. Only then do the real flavors or what's bedded inside that bag come out. What are some of the things that you saw that you respected the most, AJ, Phil, Harrison, and Adam, in your dad as you watched him go through those difficult days and moments?
This is AJ here. I guess the things that I really gain and in regards to life lessons or things that I learned from my father is he's very, very good at teaching us lessons that apply to us, at least particularly me, what I gain from it and gather is he's very good at teaching us lessons professionally and personally and how they apply. And a quick story and something that I will never forget and teach in my own way as I can pass this on. But there was one time at work where, something happened and I trusted somebody and then, they ended up doing something which was not what I expected. And, I was upset and I went to my dad and said, oh gosh, I'm never going to do that again. I'm never going to allow that to happen. And he's like, whoa. What do you mean? He's like, you did the right thing. You were honest. You trusted them. And AJ, I don't want you to change that aspect of who you are. I like who you are. And so good. That to me was a really, really great lesson and a lesson that has stuck with me since then because, professionally, I've been able to stay who I am. And throughout different relationships in my personal life, I've been able to stay who I am. And thankfully, that's warranted me a lot of incredible friends. And also, it's also warranted me a lot of happiness and fulfillment within my professional life. And that's something that I'll never be able to thank you enough for.
Yeah, I think there's one of those things where you get burned in trust. I mean, it's so easy to stop trusting. But I think when we stop trusting, we really start building up walls. And I think it takes risk. And that's one of the things that your dad has done so amazing. It's one of the examples I've watched in his life. He takes risks with people. And I hope you never stop doing that because I think it creates bridges, AJ. So kudos. I love that. Phil, watching your dad, what are some of the things? Yeah, thank you so much, AJ. Good hand out there. Phil, let's go into you. Talk about what's the things what you've watched that you're going to be taking into for the rest of your life, that your dad's taught you.
Yeah, David, I think there's actually two things that kind of go hand in hand together. Something that you've probably already experienced, I know my brothers have, is you can really just see how optimistic my dad is all the time. Mm-hmm. Whether it's good times or bad times, he'll find that silver lining and really try and look at the glass half full. And I think I really taken that on heart to heart, and that's something that I always try to really do and look at every situation. Whether it's good times or bad times, I think the second portion of this is how can I be better tomorrow than I was yesterday? So I look at it almost as like incremental improvements. Every single day I want to improve as much as my dad's done as through his personal and his professional life, as each day he tries to improve each day. So I look at it as optimism and incremental improvements in becoming a better person internally, from leading my people to my own personal life and just growing my career each day.
I think that's what Dad calls it.
Silver Lines Playbook.
Yeah.
They actually have a movie about him.
Yeah. Well, I think it's what's so good is, when you are encouraged to be yourself, because I like what I say, when you start trying to be someone else, that's, we don't need anyone to be anyone other than who they are, because otherwise you're fake. And we already have that other person. Be yourself. That's so encouraged. It's so good to see that encouragement there. It's so much there. Let's get over to Harrison. Harrison, what are the walkaways, the carryaways that you'll take from your dad after he's gone? Hopefully it's a long, long ways away.
Yes, sir. So other than the few items that AJ and Phil touched base on, I think one of the main principles my dad kind of instilled in us from an early age was just the sense of family, not just our family and taking care of one another, but really kind of just everybody else's family. I mean, his mission, his goal really is helping families, experience home ownership and everything that comes with that. And I think that kind of transcended into us being close as a family, but also us, helping other families, and us, taking our time to either donate our time to go help people. I think my little brother is doing a beach cleanup in Southern California, and, us donating to other families that don't have the ability to make their mortgage payment. And I think that my dad's heart biologically is with all of us, but also everything that he has in it, and his caring and how much he cares about people really kind of passed on to us. So I think that's probably the main principle that I've taken away from him.
That's good. That's really good. Appreciate that. People helping people, and you're down on the beach cleaning up. Now, many people would say cleaning up the beach isn't exactly like working hard on the farm because you're still on the beach. So we're going to give you a little bit of a bad time about that. But you're helping, but you're out doing it. I mean, that's awesome. What is your takeaway from your dad's influence on it that is really special to you?
I mean, what I remember are kind of just random little quotes that he would throw out. There was one that he told me when we were pretty young. It was, you don't know the next time you're going to eat again. I'm sure it had to do with something with me cleaning plates and doing dishes. And so at the time it made sense, eat your food. But now when I think about it, I kind of apply it to a business sense. So don't leave a stone unturned. Don't leave the job undone. If there's still stuff to be done, go ahead and finish it, and you'll feel better when your plate's cleaned. And so I kind of applied it to that way. And then the other one kind of happened when we were just messing around, joking, just a lighthearted conversation. He said, if you're not on the edge, you're taking up too much room. And I'm sure he
I love that.
And
I haven't heard that one. That's a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one. I think it's from a book, but he can have the credit on that. But I kind of apply that. If you find something you're interested in, just go for it. Don't worry about where you fall, and if your foot gets off the edge a little bit, just keep going after it. And so it's kind of more of just finding something you're passionate in, and then making sure you do the job well. And that was just stuff that he led by example, just on weekends by him making sure stuff was done on the ranch, or whether it was just taking care of our mom or taking care of all my other brothers and myself. Clearly, at a young age, he was taking care of me and sleeping in hospitals. And so it was just something that you see over and over, and it wasn't really a lesson. It was just, that's how you're supposed to be. And so that's just something that we learned, and he's a good at teaching when he's not teaching, if that makes sense. He kind of leaves lessons all around, and he knows that you'll find the right spot to pick him up.
That's so good. I love it. And really, I mean, a shout out to your mom. I mean, to give a part of the liver, that is just, I'm so grateful for her sacrifice and what she's doing, because I got to tell you, being married to a mortgage executive, especially wondering the role as a chairman of the industry, she is giving up a lot. Your company's giving up. You all are sharing your dad with us as an industry. And so shout out to your mom for the amazing job she's done in raising and the partnership that she has with this amazing family that support. I mean, I could go on and on about that. Yeah, I can't wait to meet her. I haven't had the privilege of doing so yet, but Chris, let's get it to you as we wrap this up. I mean, this is one of those podcasts I just enjoyed doing because it's real life. And I want to celebrate something you said, Chris. First of all, so many people are afraid to admit, I came this close to bankruptcy. I came through that same narrow spot during those same years and had to sell the house on the lake, all these things we had to go through. I want to just thank you for that moment of transparency. A lot of people say, well, look at all he's attained. I tell you what we learn about ourselves and the life that we live and the lessons we pass on just by living through those moments of difficulty. And you've had a number of them. So kudos to you for that transparency. So we'll let you wrap this up. If you want to talk about each one of your boys, or if you want to just share the things that you would encourage our listeners as values that you would encourage others carry into their business and into their lives.
Well, thank you, David. And the first thing I'll say is that I hope the folks at Nike are listening to this podcast, because they have at least 4 or 5 different commercial slogans that they can take away from the boys. The second thing I'll say to you that it is humbling and rewarding, and frankly, it's a proud moment as a parent to listen to your sons talk about you and talk about the influence you may have had on them, not just personally, but professionally. It's one thing to watch your child grow up. It's another thing to watch them grow up every day at work. And to listen to people who you respect and people that respect you comment about the kind of work that your sons do, it is a totally different kind of reward that a parent doesn't get to see all that often. And I know that at times Teresa feels a little jealous because she hears about these things secondhand, and, you know, I'm sort of in the front row seat to watch either Adam or Harry or Phil or AJ do something and then listen to a colleague or someone, again, in the industry say, oh, my gosh, I met your son, I met your sons. It's amazing. And then the last thing I'll say to you is I appreciate the hard work that you're doing. I mean, what you're providing for is something that I still think is very, and as you listen to the boys talk, it's one of the things about educating and teaching. Yeah. And it's hard. Education is different than teaching. Teaching is an outbound thing. Education is something that's internalized, and you end up being able to understand it really in a variety of different venues and a variety of different circumstances. So I appreciate the hard work you're doing. I know a number of people listen to your show, and I love the variedness of the kind of commentary you have, particularly this kind of thing, right? I don't know if anybody takes away anything from this. It'd be sure would be interesting to know. But if there's one thing you can take away from this is that you can feel pretty good about young people like our sons coming into this industry with the kind of enthusiasm and the kind of creativity and the kind of humor that they have. And I think it bodes well for our industry long term. So thank you, David.
In other words, David, we are liking David Lykken.
Oh, that's good. That's
he
good.
Stole
that's
that
good.
from me.
Stole it from me.
Yeah, that is one. That's one they probably came
very
up with.
original. I love that.
Oh, you guys, that cracked me up. I tell you, I can't wait.
I got several.
I want to spend more time. I think about it, and the reason I'm so passionate about this industry and want to see the younger generation come into it is because of this. I think it's the most transformative thing we can do in our life. I think the first thing is having a powerful religious conversion experience, which many of us share that are listening to this podcast. The second thing is marrying your life partner. And Chris, you found that with Teresa, your wife. And so that's the second most transformative thing. The third most transformative thing is watch your children being born and watching them grow. We witnessed that here today. And the fourth most transformative thing that can happen in someone's life is buying that home where your babies sleep, where your kids grow up, where you have those moments. And we as an industry are part of the fourth most transformative thing. And I just encourage anyone considering getting into this industry, listen to these four young men talk about their dad and what kind of impact it's having on their own lives, and more importantly, to an industry we are proud to serve. Thank you, Georges. You guys are just all wonderful, and I'm just so grateful to have had you here. Thank you so much. Appreciate you both, all y'all. As we say in Texas, all y'all. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, guys.
We appreciate it. It's fun. It's been such a great time. Folks, share this podcast around with others. Download it. Share it with others and that are, especially out there that are going through difficulties. It's through those difficulties that we really learn and grow. So encourage you all. Thank you so much for being here on the podcast. We're out of time, way off of time, but I would just thank you so much for taking the time to listen and, most importantly, share this. Have a great week. Look forward to having you back here next week. Check the website for who our guests will be and the lineup we've got coming up. Have a great week, everybody. Bye.
You've been listening to Lykken on Lending, a weekly mortgage market update with your host David Lykken of Transformational Mortgage Solutions. Join us next week, and thanks for listening. You've just heard an audio clip from Lykken on Lending, and here are the sponsors that make this show possible.
Black Knight, Open Mortgage, Finastra, ResX, Warehouse Lending, a division of United Bank. So good to have them as our newest sponsor. The MBA, Lenders One, and the Mortgage Collaborative, the two co-ops in our advertising group, as well as Velma, Knowledge Coop, and Vidyard.